we would like to take the next 20 minutes to look at the topic of QI and its economic relevance from a little bit more overarching and scientific perspective. And who better to do that with than Professor Dr. Knut Blind. Professor Blind is the coordinator of the Business Unit Regulation and Innovation at the Fraunhofer Institute for Systems and Innovation Research, and he's also professor for innovation economics at the Technical University here in Berlin. Welcome, Professor Blind. Now I would like to dive directly into the first question. In the previous session, we gained interesting insights about the NLF and the system of QI in Europe. From your academic perspective, can you tell us a little bit more about the economic importance of well-functioning quality infrastructures and the role QI plays in modern trade and innovation systems?
Yeah, thank you, Vera. Thanks for the organizer for the invitation, also to be here live and without mask. That's nice. Yesterday we had our first lecture again with a small group without mask. Yeah, thanks for your question, and also thanks for the panelists and the previous speakers to kick this off and also kind of inspire then my statement here. Yeah, in general, QI is really key, especially for the single market. So far, we have also focused a little bit on standards and standardization as an important framework condition to support the trade within Europe, yeah, especially within the EU, and the global value chains within the EU. We have shown that standards, and especially international standards, European standards, are really an important driver for trade. That's important aspect. On the global level, we also see that elements of certification, accreditation are forcing trade also between low or less developed and higher developed countries. It's really a very important infrastructure. That means that's the trade aspect, and kind of based on these positive trade effects, we have certainly both kind of positive growth, macroeconomic growth effects, and also employment effects. However, also there's this link to innovation. Maybe we can come later on that, which is addressed in the previous kind of talks, also in the brochure. But I think there's a little bit room for improvement, and maybe we can also come back later on this topic. Also, the issue of beyond the economic importance. I think QI is like. We already see with the ISO kind of attributing the different sustainable development goals to ISO standards. I think that's also then certainly true for the QI in general, and therefore we see overall that beyond the pure economic importance, there's also a really important role to play to tackle future challenges, and maybe in particularly climate change.
Yeah, thank you very much. You mentioned the economic relevance of QI, and I would like to follow up with a question directly. Where would you say that quality infrastructure and very closely related to that technical barriers to trade are noted in the current debate on trade, and maybe how has this changed in the past couple of years?
Overall, the role of technical barriers to trade is a key kind of topic in studies and academic research. That's definitely true, and we have also seen kind of a higher importance because the tariff barriers to trade have kind of appeared to become less relevant, but we have also seen some shifts. Especially under Trump, with the custom duties and these discussions, there's maybe a little bit of a reshift also to these other tariff-based barriers, but the technical barriers are certainly in the focus. However, if you really look in the databases of papers, the term quality infrastructure in academic papers is still very rare. We are still at a very low level, and I'm kind of driving the work on standards since meanwhile more than 20 years, and we started there also at a quite low level, and meanwhile we see much higher attention, but we do not see the high attention on the QI system as such with all the different other components, not really yet in academia. Therefore, I'm also quite happy that Dr. Koch, who was on the panel before, and his colleagues are supporting us at the TU Berlin to give lectures on quality infrastructure management, which is, as far as I know, the only lecture worldwide, a lecture series on the topic. And this is on the one hand, we are proud, but on the other hand, I think that's not what we would like to see in the future. It means also, maybe also for the partner organizations which have contributed to the report, this is maybe also a message to push that, to go beyond what's maybe done on standards to really address the whole QI system. But there are also reasons why we see a lack of research there, because these are very complex elements and components, and the linkages between them are often not really kind of traceable via data, and if you do not have really adequate data, then it's getting difficult for researchers, and just to do kind of theoretical consideration, that's not anymore sufficient. That means you have to really prove if you claim that there are positive or negative or ambivalent links, and therefore also a little bit maybe a wish or requirement to the institutions to disclose a little bit, maybe more data, also to researchers, which would allow them to go in depth, because some are a little bit black box mechanisms, and therefore they are not really accessible, and at the end also not very attractive for researchers.
Okay, that actually is also a good transition to my next question, which is about the publication United in Quality and Safety that was launched today. It provides an introduction to quality infrastructure in Germany and the European Union for policymakers and trade partners also abroad. How important is a common understanding of quality infrastructure between international partners for a fair and efficient trade, in your opinion?
I think this publication is important to kick off maybe also a discussion with the involved partners already, but beyond, and we have to be a little bit also clear at the European level. Meanwhile, standardization is really reaching a certain visibility. There are currently the efforts to come up with a European standardization strategy, but in these discussions, quality infrastructure is not mentioned. It means here there's still some way to go in order to get this topic even within Europe at a certain level, and maybe this publication can help to trigger that within Europe. But even more important, because we have the single market, and the previous speaker already kind of mentioned what has been established. Therefore, this is a system which I think we can rely on, which has established, and there's a trust. But on the global level, what we also see is the geopolitical kind of developments in the last few years show that there's maybe a more tight competition and more tension to be expected, and QI is an element for these geopolitical games, and therefore to make maybe the German or European position really transparent is maybe a good point to really start discussions. How to maybe at the end come to a system which is a kind of win-win constellation then for all involved trading partners, not only from an economic perspective, but also from a sustainability perspective, because I think that's the bigger challenge, and also current the problems we see in the global value chains with the shortages, not only in the UK, but also in other countries. We see more and more that these global value chains are very sensitive, and the QI could be an instrument to really to make them resilient also against shocks. That's certainly a learning from the last 20 months. And also regarding the future, where we might have even more critical challenges, climate issues, and so on and so on. What we have seen also in the last few months, even in Germany.
Thank you for these elaborations. Now, one of the key focus areas of your work and research is the connection between standardization or standards and innovation. Hence, I would focus my next question on that. And there's a very famous quote by Henry Chesbrough saying, "Companies that don't innovate die." So my question to you would be, first of all, do you agree with the statement from your colleague of UC Berkeley? And secondly, what role does standardization play in this?
Yeah, I think it's very difficult to disagree with Henry Chesbrough. Maybe to put this a little bit in context, it depends also a little bit in which framework are you active. That means I'm not sure whether your hairdresser is really kind of under permanent innovation pressure, whereas kind of the software company next corner is probably under higher pressure. Therefore, it depends a little bit on the context, on the sector, on the technologies you are working with. They are very dynamic ones, and then the companies which are using these technologies, they have to follow his rule, otherwise they might die or disappear. In other contexts, it's not maybe necessary. Yeah, the link between innovation and standardization is a critical one. We have heard on the panel, and we have seen it on different slides. But if you're looking at the brochure, I think there's still room for improvement. Also in the brochure, because it's very complex. And on the one hand, standards are really codifying know-how, and like patents or scientific publications. And what we meanwhile realize, and that's also kind of an insight, and a very important insight, that maybe standards are even more important as a source of knowledge for innovators than patents, especially in the IT field. You cannot really do innovation by ignoring the existing standards. That's difficult. That's a first important aspect. Then we have heard trust. Trust is also very important, especially if you are going to commercialize maybe new, quite risky products, or at least products which are perceived to be risky. Then you need really a good kind of QI system to really convince the consumer or the customer that the product is aligned with the existing standards. That's certified, and maybe certified by an accredited body. That certainly help the innovators to commercialize successfully their products. And then standards are definitely kind of assuring or can guarantee compatibility. And since we are in a very complex world where we use networks, maybe distribute our products on networks, or maybe contribute components to complex technological networks like in mobile communication, you have to really consider this, maybe also position yourself within these complex technologies in order to be a successful innovator. Otherwise, it's not going to work, and therefore we see there are very different functions which are in addition to the quite simple function that standards kind of reduce the variety, and you might then enter into the production of one specific size, and you can then exploit cost reduction because you have not kind of 100 different types or specifications to serve, but you focus on maybe A4 as a classical kind of German standard, and then you run this out and maybe be able to reduce prices, increase the range of your customers, and maybe really come up with a globally successful product.
Thank you. Now, looking at the time, we are unfortunately almost at the end already, but I, of course, don't want to let you go without also looking to the future of QI with you. In the panel discussion earlier today, the question how we can or must shape the QI of the future was discussed, and I know that you closely followed the discussion as well. So I would like to give you the opportunity to add to the discussion from your perspective and to also elaborate where you see current opportunities and challenges, especially regarding the digitalization of QI.
Yeah, that's certainly the key word regarding the future. It's from the opportunity perspective, is certainly the digitalization of QI, connecting the different components in a very dense way. To be able to trace products and trace whether they kind of comply to standards or certifications. I think that's definitely a very big opportunity. On the other hand, it also requires that all these different stakeholders and institutions play quite close together. And agree on a common system, on common standards also within the system at the national level. And that's already not so easy. Because what we also see is digitalization means also we have more software, and then the question is, where does it come from? We also did studies on the linkages between standardization and open source. And these are still very different communities, but we have to really integrate them and also kind of maybe use open source solutions for the digitalization of QI. I didn't hear the term open source not today. Maybe I missed it, but I didn't hear it. But this is a big challenge. Especially for the standardization bodies, but also the other bodies around. But it's also an opportunity, and this is very kind of a very powerful tool, which has also great economic impacts. A further issue is certainly then the use, but this has also been mentioned, the opportunities and the efficiency gains which we might get by really digitalization of the QI system to address the big challenges kind of maybe listed in the Sustainable Development Goals. Another challenge is definitely then also to get kind of common understanding with the trading partners. That means also then the whole different QI systems which are also due to the still quite nationally biased regulatory framework are not so easy to really make them international. Therefore, I do not like the term national quality infrastructure. I like the term global or international. And this is a challenge because here also the geopolitical games which we see in the last 5-10 years are relevant here. And the digitalized QI system has also to be secured against maybe possible cyber attacks. We at TU, we had a cyber attack here in April, and we are still suffering from it. And a QI system is also vulnerable, and this has also to be addressed, these potential attacks, because then maybe not only universities, maybe a little bit kind of lockdown for additional lockdown for a few weeks or months, but maybe a whole value chain. And we have seen what happened with when this one ship in the Suez Canal was blocking kind of such a supply chain, and with cyber attacks there are also opportunities. If you imagine maybe the harbor in Rotterdam, if somebody would attack here this system, which is then completely digitalized, this would really then have long-lasting impacts. And what we have seen here. Therefore, lots of opportunities, but we have also to consider all these challenges which are around, because we have different players at the national level, also at the international level, and these additional challenges, cyber security, but also maybe natural disasters, which have been kind of increased in frequency in the last few years dramatically, will also challenge QI certainly, and therefore we have to build not only a digitalized but also a resilient QI in the future.
Very interesting. Thank you very much. Unfortunately, our 20 minutes are already up. I would like to thank you for your time and for being here live in Berlin with us. It was a pleasure to talk to you, and I think your elaborations clearly highlighted the economic relevance and benefits connected to QI, but also the way ahead for the field in the future. And with that, I would like to hand over back to my colleague Ophelia.